Hi there, it's Jenny Hobbs, Fit Mom MD, and I am so excited to talk with you today. Okay, that's not true. I'm not that excited to talk about imposter syndrome simply because I have a little bit of imposter syndrome about talking about imposter syndrome, if that makes sense. I definitely do not think this is something that I have fully figured out. However, it's something I'm working on and it's something I've been reading about, and I'm developing some habits and mindset shifts to try to do better in this area. And I also know that so many of the high achieving women that I'm friends with, doctors, really, nurse educators, really amazing people struggle with feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome as well. So I wanted to start sharing what I've been learning, even though I haven't completely figured it out yet. And in case you haven't noticed, pretty much everything I talk about here is something that I myself have struggled with and worked through, and I definitely don't think I have any of this stuff figured out. I'm just constantly working each day to get a little bit better in these areas. So I want you to follow along and do the same, and we'll all work on getting better together, right? So let's dive in. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what imposter syndrome is. So it's been defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist in spite of evident success. I believe that definition is from Amy Cuddy, who is a lecturer at Harvard. And so these are, feelings that you have that you maybe don't belong, that you're not as smart as another person, that you don't have as much to offer that is unique, that you are a fraud, even though outwardly you look like you're successful, even though outwardly you've got the titles and outwardly you appear confident and like you have it all together. And studies show that the majority of us do struggle with imposter syndrome at least some of the time. So that's the first thing to know, is that if you feel this way, you are not alone. No matter how great everyone's social media looks these days and how much everyone puts their best foot forward in meetings and in their work, most of us do have those moments. We just don't always hear about everyone else's moments of self-doubt and struggle. And so I think just first of all, recognizing that is really powerful. And not that we all have to share all of those moments when we doubt ourselves, but just recognizing that it's a normal feeling, I think can help a lot. In fact, when a friend of mine recommended that I do this topic, I kind of laughed and I said, well, I shouldn't talk about that because I have imposter syndrome myself. How can I give people advice on imposter syndrome, right? And she said, I would never have guessed that about you. And isn't that funny, right? Here, this is one of my biggest struggles, and yet someone who interacts with me and follows me and all these things didn't know that that was kind of behind the scenes. And so that's part of why I want to do this video, is to say, like, we all have this, and that's okay. Let's talk about some practical steps we can take to make our imposter syndrome, less severe, less frequent, and help us take action in spite of it. So I have 3 tips that I think will help with this, and I want to share those with you. Now, as I've been working on my own imposter syndrome and reading and learning, one of the really great resources I came across that I would recommend to you is a podcast by Amy Porterfield. Her podcast is titled Online Marketing Made Easy, and it's the episode from January 23rd, 2020, and it's all about imposter syndrome. It's so good. If you don't know Amy Porterfield, she delivers so much value in everything that she does. So I definitely recommend listening to the whole thing. But what I'm going to share with you now are some of my takeaways from what she had suggested in that podcast. So the first thing is to stop overthinking. Now, this one is hard for me. The way Amy puts it is to get out of your head and get into your heart. When we spend too much time overthinking, all the details of how we're not qualified, how someone else does it better, comparing ourselves, all those running thoughts going through our minds, she talks about how that's not serving us, and that's not moving our business forward, and that's not showing up as our true authentic selves, right? And it's sort of just like leaving you mired in your own head. And so she recommends, when you have those feelings that of inadequacy that come up, thinking to yourself, is this true? Or are these just thoughts that are not serving me? So when you think, like she gave a great example of how she was going to be speaking at Rise Business Conference, which I actually attended, which was an amazing conference put on by Rachel Hollis. And she talked about how leading up to that, she was looking at the speaker lineup and it was so amazing. And she was thinking, I don't belong here, right? And she was kind of mired in those thoughts for a while. And she had to actively rephrase that and say, look, thinking that I don't belong here doing this is not serving me. And so she reframed it to, I do belong here. And she showed up and, gave her talk and showed up as her own authentic self and spoke from the heart. And interesting, this is kind of meta side note here. I went to that conference, and before I ever heard this podcast from Amy, I walked out of that conference and you know what I said? I said the number one speaker at that conference for me was Amy Porterfield. All those people she was comparing herself to and thinking she didn't belong in that lineup with them that she thought were so much better than she was, I didn't get as many practical, applicable tips for my business from anyone else as I did from Amy. She was my number one speaker. She immediately changed how I run my business, and I came away wanting to follow her and devour everything that she has to offer because I think she's so amazing. Now, if she had sat there overthinking how she did not belong and not producing that content from the heart, right? Not only would it have held her back from what she wanted to do and what she had on her heart to share, but she wouldn't have had an opportunity to make that impact on me. And I was a person that needed to hear what she had to say, right? And so the fact that she got past that and came and brought that information then, had a domino effect in helping me improve my business and my mindset, right? So it's so important to ask yourself, are these things true, or are they just thoughts that are not serving me? And I wrote that down because I really want to work on that. And isn't that so cool, right? That she had that thought and yet she had such a great impact on me. And I need to actually write her and tell her, like, I think you were the best speaker there. So you never know who is waiting to hear what you have to say. And if you spend your time in your own head, then you're never going to be able to help those people. So the second thing you can do to combat imposter syndrome is to stop comparing yourself to others. And I know this is a daily struggle for me. It's a work in progress. I'm sure it is for you too. But at least the reminder that as soon as you notice yourself doing it, to stop and reassess, okay? Because the thing about comparison is that not only is comparison the thief of joy, but it also steals your voice. It steals your authenticity. When you're spending so much time looking at what everyone else is doing, that is taking away from your own unique perspective. And this is one reason I actually discussed this in my morning habit video. I'll link that in case you want to check it out. But this is one reason that I don't check my email, check my social media for the first hour of every day, because I truly feel like I need that time to get my own voice. And so if you're feeling like you're falling into comparison and imposter syndrome, try taking away all that noise out there and just being with yourself for 1 hour a day. Scribble down. Some people do what's called morning pages, where they just write down the thoughts that come out of their head, no matter what they are, uncensored each morning, just to get in touch with their own unique voice. Do whatever you need to do, but spend that time in the morning, that 1 hour a day. That works well for me. Amy Porterfield talked about taking like a weekend and unplugging from everything and all social media and thinking about what you want to do in your business and getting your thoughts together. Kind of same idea, implemented differently. But comparison, getting away from that so you're not comparing yourself to everyone else and getting your own unique voice is really, really key, because the fact is, as she says in the podcast, there are no truly new ideas. Like, isn't that freeing? I thought, oh, wow. There's no brand new idea. There's just different ideas that we've heard and we are all assimilating and putting together in different ways and different words and different formats and different, voices. And so I thought that was so freeing when she said that, because I look around and I see all these women who are amazing doctors and coaches, and they're saying these things, and I think, well, I don't want to try to put a course together on that topic because that girl's already doing it, or that woman's already doing it, or that guy's already doing it. I'll just be saying the same things they're saying. Isn't that like kind of not really unique? But here's what she said. Nothing is unique. All those people are just taking ideas from other sources and putting them in their own voice. And different people hear things differently depending who is speaking, right? We all connect with different people. And if we're showing up as our authentic self, the right people are going to connect with that. And as Amy said in her podcast, someone out there needs to hear this idea from you in your voice with your unique spin. There's always someone out there that needs to hear it from you, not from somebody else. And I thought that is so freeing, right? Like, what is my unique spin on these ideas that I've been assimilating and journaling and writing about? And what am I thinking about in my first morning of the day? How I'm kind of pulling everything together. So stop comparing yourself. Just remember that what you have to say and the way that you are saying it is what is valuable. You are what is unique about your content. You bring that. Another example she gave was like her dog, right? She's like, my dog looks like thousands of other Labradoodles in the world, but my dog is uniquely my dog because of his personality and the way that he does these different, quirky things, right? And she loves him for those quirks. It's the way he is a Labradoodle that she loves, not the fact that there's lots of other dogs that look just like him, right? So you are what is unique about your content. Take that time away from comparing yourself to everyone else and worry about your own voice and what you have to say and the way that you put it together, and trust that people will respond to your own authentic perspective. Okay, the third thing you can do to overcome your imposter syndrome is to take action. I've spoken about this before. Action leads to motivation, action leads to confidence. So if you take the actions that align with the goal that you want to achieve, with the role that you are in or that you want to be in, that you're feeling like an imposter about, if you take the actions, like little tiny steps that fit with that role or fit with that goal, that is going to be evidence to yourself that you are qualified, that you do belong there, that you do have something unique to offer. Okay, so you've got to start putting yourself out there and taking those steps. They don't necessarily have to be big steps, but you need to give your brain some evidence that you can do this and that you are in this role, okay? So what actions you take? Well, it depends on what role it is you feel like an imposter in, right? So if you're doing an online business, you need to make the video or make the podcast or write the blog post or write the post on social media or reach out to some prospects and ask them if they want to work with you. Hit send on those messages you're scared to send. For me, I struggle with sometimes just like returning the emails or opening emails from people that I'm intimidated by. And I will sit there in inaction feeling like an imposter because I think they're going to see right through me and not opening that email. Well, me sitting there in that inaction is just giving my brain further proof that I am an imposter, right? But when I overcome that and open the email and just respond to it, right? And when I sit here and do this video for you about imposter syndrome, even though I feel a little bit less than qualified, that gives my brain a little bit more evidence that I am what I say I am. And that doesn't even get into the fact that doing those things then helps you find your own unique voice and find people who respond to it. So once you put those things out there, people who respond to your own authentic self come back to you, and then you can be empowered to be more of your authentic self and keep showing up that way, right? So I know that's a ton of info. If you really want to get into taking action and you do an online business, again, I would refer you back to Amy's podcast because it gave a ton of practical tips. And whatever field you're in, I would definitely look for the experts in that field to figure out what actions to take. But remember, they don't have to be huge. Even a tiny little action can give you that boost of confidence that you need and that little motivation boost to do the next thing and the next thing, and it builds on itself. So I hope that you found these tips helpful. Let me know if you also struggle with imposter syndrome, if you found any strategies that work well for you for overcoming it, or if you're going to adopt any of these, which again, get out of your head and get into your heart. Stop overthinking it. Stop comparing yourself to others because you are what is unique about your content. There's no new ideas. It's okay. Take a little time. Get away from social media and outside influences and find your own voice and take action. So those are my best tips. I'm going to work on those myself. I will keep you posted on how it goes, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video later if I think of some more great tips for you on this really difficult topic. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you back here next time.